All right, next episode of the ET48 2.0 Tekno E build. This is going to be bag H, which is the front C hubs and CVD assembly. And we are going to start with assembling these CVs. And so the first step in doing that is we're going to put a little grease right in here and right in there, and we'll slide this in, and then we'll wipe off the excess. You want that hole to point up. Do the same thing with this one. A little grease there. A little grease there. Slide that in. And I don't like to go crazy with the grease because it just attracts dirt. And I just want to make sure I get those barrels nice and greased up. So then you put this in like so, and there's two pins here, and there's one pin that has this little notch in it. That's not the one you want to use. You want to use a smaller one that does not have a notch. And you plug that in. Do this one as well. Feed that in. Like so. Okay. So then the next step here is you take these hubs, and I have these right and left, trying to keep them. These are a little bit confusing to figure out what goes where, and I was trying to see if they had a marking on them, L and R, but I don't see that. So if you hold them like this, you want these little tabs to point to each other. Anyway, we're going to put this flange bearing in the outside, and we're going to stick this little spacer right in there, and then the bigger bearing on the inside. Okay, so once you get the bearings in, then you want to put these CVDs in and make sure the pen doesn't slide out as you stick them in. And then you have the hole here, and you align it to the hole there. And then these bigger pens, you make sure this little notch points this way out, because you're going to put a set screw in through here that's going to interface with that notch. Like so. And then we're going to get the 2.5 millimeter. I like to wipe these off just in case there's any oil on them. And I put quite a bit of thread lock on these. Like, I just fill all the threads like so, all the way around. And then try to keep that pen from moving. So I'll start this thing to get it snug, and then I'll bring in one of my tires and actually hold that hex, and then give it a good cranking. Alright, so that one's done. Alright, so we got the hub assembly all built. CVA and hub assembly. That one feels good. That one also feels good. You know, you want to get in the habit once you build an assembly like this is just to make sure everything feels right. And if it doesn't, investigate why. And you don't want to do too many steps because then it's hard to know what's causing the binding if you have binding. All right, so the next step in the manual, it has you do the camber links. And I'm not gonna do those on camera because I already have another video that I'll link in the description on how I do it. Long story short, put the turnbuckles in a drill, pre-thread the rod ends in and out twice. Make sure you do 2 for this side, 2 for that side because the threads are opposite. And make sure this turnbuckle doesn't get too hot. But beyond that, I'll see my description. And so then the next step is building these C-hubs, and I keep on trying to video this, and for whatever reason my camera has been shutting off, so it's partially assembled. You put the bearings in the hubs like so, and then this steering block, there's a hole in it right here, and that hole interfaces with this tab, and that's how you can kind of know how to put these together. And you hold it, and then you put these shoulder bolts in. And the tricky part with these shoulder bolts is making sure that you get them straight. It's kind of difficult because the screw is narrower than the hole they're going through, and so I find it to be a little bit hard to get them just right. And so that's what I'm trying to do here, is get them straight. And I like to put my wrench here and kind of sight down. You know, I put both of them, I start both of them, and then you can sight the wrench down them. To make sure they're straight. And I like to look at them from both directions. And, you know, once you get these things in here and you think they're straight, kind of a final check for me is just to make sure this thing moves freely. And it does. Some point I think I want to build a 3D printed tool to help make this assembly process much easier. But yeah, this thing does not like to go in straight. The other thing you could do is you could potentially get like a tap set. And do these off the C-hub. That would also, I think, make it easy. Anyway, I screw these in just snug. They should go right in if you get them straight. Screw them both in just snug, and then you want to check this thing to make sure it's free. And it is. All right, yeah, so these are both, you can see this thing is hitting the stop. The hole I talked about is right there. And everything's nice and free. So the final step for these kingpin installation is you got these little set screws that go in right here, and these do not have to go in. You do not need to make these go in super tight. You just want to bring them in here and snug them up against that. Do not put them in crazy tight or you'll strip the threads of this hub. All right, so I'll stick the other side in and we'll come back. All right, so I got the front end in here now. You know, the next step here is to put the front end assembly together. So to put this hub here in onto the arm, and you use these little screws, and they have a flat spot on the tip there, and you can see the head also has a flat spot right here, and that aligns with this flat spot, so you can see where that flat spot is when you assemble. And you know, the trick is you want the flat spot to point out, and there's these screw holes in the C-hub, and so you just get that flat spot to point out. And then is what you're gonna do is you're gonna take these little set screws with thread lock, because we're going into aluminum, and you're gonna secure those in place. And remember, when you're going into aluminum, it should go right in. There shouldn't be resistance. Okay, so you put that one in, and then you put this one in. And once you get this all tightened, it's good to make sure that flat spot is where you think it is, and it is. So there's one side. I'm gonna finish the other one and I'll be back. All right, so we got both hubs all together, and you just want to make sure that everything is moving and they all feel nice and smooth, and they do. So the final step here is to put these turnbuckle links on, and we'll talk about these screws at the end as well, but the final step is to put these on. And again, I'm not following, actually I guess on the kit setup I am following it for my setup, so it's the same as the kit. which is 2E on the location. So I already put these screws in the tower just to make my life easier. And then it's the outside bottom hole here. And just a note too, my lengths, I did not size them to the manual yet. Since I'm using the stock manual settings, I'll use that as reference. And then just make sure too, when you're putting these links on, that these notches are, for me, I like to point them to the right because I like it when I rotate back for it to tighten. But the manual says the other way, have them to the left. So just make sure whichever way you choose are the same for the front and rear of your car, and right to left for this build. Yeah, I have team associated 10 scale cars, and they're all opposite of Tekno. So if you put the notches to the left like the Tekno manual says, then they rotate back to tighten. So since I'm used to that on my 10 scales, I just like them to be the same. Alright, so then we'll tighten all this stuff up. So yeah, those final two screws, that's also it's a setting, a preference setting. And so those final two screws are actually the steering stop screws, and you would put them right in both of these hubs, and then you could adjust the maximum throw of your steering with these screws. So the manual, so yeah, in the manual, it specifically says to not forget to install these screws as it improves consistency. And the setup sheet I'm using, you can put washers behind this screw to change it, and it's saying 0 washers. And it also, they're not using the screw. So I'm gonna leave it out, but the manual does say to not forget to put those in. But per the setup I'm copying, I'm gonna leave them out. So that'll be your choice, but that's what those screws are for. And so that concludes Bag H. I hope you guys found this video useful. And if you did, please like and subscribe.